Daenerys Targaryen entered the world amidst the fury of a raging storm. The waves crashed against Dragonstone, mirroring the chaos that consumed the realm. Her mother, Queen Rhaella, did not survive the ordeal. Daenerys, the last Targaryen, was born into exile. She and her brother Viserys, the rightful heir, fled across the narrow sea. They were hunted, always on the run. Theirs was a childhood spent in the shadows, clinging to the fading memory of their lineage. Viserys, embittered by years of hardship, clung to the Iron Throne as his birthright. He filled Daenerys' ears with tales of their family's glory, fueling a longing for a home she barely remembered. Yet, fear coloured her brother's ambition. He treated Daenerys as a pawn, a tool to reclaim what he believed was rightfully his. Their journey took them across the free cities. They relied on the charity of merchants and nobles, each hand out a bitter reminder of their fallen status. Viserys sold their mother's crown, a desperate act that branded him the beggar king. Their exile led them to Pentos, a city of pleasure and intrigue. There they found refuge with Magister Illyrio Mopatis, a wealthy merchant with his own ambitions. Illyrio arranged a marriage for Daenerys, a strategic alliance to further his own goals. Her betrothed was Khal Drogo, a powerful warlord of the Dothraki, a fierce horse lord who commanded a vast Khalasar. Viserys saw Drogo's warriors as the answer to his prayers, the army he needed to reclaim the Iron Throne. Daenerys, however, saw only a savage brute, a man who frightened her. Her wedding was a grand affair, a spectacle of Dothraki tradition and power. She was gifted with 3 dragon eggs, petrified remnants of a bygone era. Life in the Dothraki Sea was harsh and unforgiving. Daenerys, accustomed to the comforts of her childhood, had to adapt to a new way of life. She learned to ride, to fight, to speak the Dothraki tongue. Slowly she began to understand Drogo, to see the man beneath the fierce warrior exterior. Viserys, consumed by his obsession with the Iron Throne, grew impatient. He demanded that Drogo fulfill his end of the bargain to provide the army he had promised. His arrogance and disrespect for Dothraki customs earned him Drogo's wrath. In a fit of rage, Drogo killed Viserys, crowning him with a pot of molten gold. Daenerys, witnessing her brother's demise, felt a coldness grip her heart. Pregnant and alone, Daenerys faced new dangers. An assassination attempt on her life solidified Drogo's resolve to conquer Westeros. He vowed to claim the Iron Throne for their unborn son, to avenge the attempt on his Khaleesi's life. Daenerys, riding beside her Khal, felt a surge of power. She was no longer the timid girl sold to a barbarian warlord. She was Daenerys Targaryen, wife of the great Khal Drogo, and she would claim her birthright. Fate, however, had other plans. The flames danced around Daenerys, a swirling inferno that consumed everything in its path. The Dothraki watched in awe as the pyre burned, the heat so intense it drove them back. They expected to find only ashes, the remnants of their Khaleesi consumed by the flames. But as the fire died down, a figure emerged from the smoke and embers. Daenerys Targaryen, unburnt, stood tall amidst the ashes. Cradled in her arms were 3 newly hatched dragons, their scales shimmering like jewels in the dawn light. Drogon, named after her fallen husband, was black as night, his fire a fearsome black and red. Rhaegal, named after her brother Rhaegar, bore scales of bronze and green, his fire a blazing inferno. Viserion, named after her cruel brother Viserys, was as white as snow, his fire a stream of molten gold. The Dothraki, witnessing this miracle, hailed her as their queen. They swore their allegiance to the woman who had brought dragons back into the world. Daenerys, no longer the timid girl sold into marriage, embraced her destiny. She was the mother of dragons, a title that commanded respect and fear in equal measure. Daenerys, betrayed and disillusioned by the treachery she encountered in Qarth, set her sights on Slaver's Bay. Astapor, a city built on the backs of slaves, became her first target. She negotiated the purchase of the Unsullied, an army of eunuch soldiers renowned for their discipline and skill. But Daenerys had no intention of perpetuating the cycle of slavery. Using her cunning and the awe-inspiring might of her dragons, she seized control of Astapor, freeing the Unsullied and unleashing her fury upon the slave masters who had profited from their misery. Yunkai and Meereen, the remaining cities of Slavers Bay, trembled before her. Daenerys, hailed as breaker of chains, became a symbol of hope for the oppressed, her name whispered with reverence and fear. Meereen, the largest and most powerful of the slave cities, proved to be her greatest challenge. Conquering the city was but the first step. Ruling it, bringing peace and stability to a land torn apart by centuries of oppression, proved to be a far more daunting task. Ruling Meereen proved a more daunting task than conquering it. The Sons of the Harpy, a shadowy resistance movement, emerged from the shadows. They terrorized the city, targeting freedmen and Daenerys' supporters. Their attacks were a constant reminder of the deep-seated resentment simmering beneath the surface. Daenerys, torn between her desire to be a just ruler and the need to quell the rebellion, found herself making difficult choices. Her dragons, once symbols of hope and liberation, became instruments of fear as she struggled to maintain order. The line between liberator and conqueror blurred, her actions scrutinized by those who had once hailed her as their savior. Marrying Hizdar Zo Lorak, a Meereenese nobleman, was a strategic move to bridge the divide between the old ways and the new. It was a marriage of convenience, a political alliance intended to bring peace, but it came at a cost. The whispers of rebellion escalated into open conflict. The Sons of the Harpy, emboldened by their successes, launched a daring attack during the reopening of the fighting pits. Chaos erupted as assassins descended upon the arena, their blades flashing in the sunlight. Daenerys, trapped in the royal box, watched in horror as her guards fought bravely, but were cut down one by one. Fear, a primal instinct she had long suppressed, threatened to consume her. But in that moment of terror, when all hope seemed lost, Drogon, her black dragon, soared into the arena. Drawn by the scent of blood and the cries of battle, he unleashed his fury upon the attackers. Fire and blood painted the arena as Drogon unleashed his fiery breath, incinerating her enemies. The crowd scattered, trampling over one another in their haste to escape the inferno. Daenerys, caught in the maelstrom, felt a strange sense of exhilaration. This was the power she possessed, the power of her Targaryen bloodline. Drogon carried Daenerys away from the carnage, his powerful wings beating against the air. She clung to his scaled back, the wind whipping through her hair, the city of Meereen shrinking into the distance. Below her the world spread out like a tapestry of green and brown, the troubles of men seeming insignificant from this vantage point. For the first time since arriving in Slavers Bay, she felt truly free. They flew for days, Drogon hunting for food in the vastness of the Dothraki Sea. Daenerys, exhausted and hungry, found solace in the rhythm of his flight, the warmth of his scales. She had never felt so connected to her dragons, so in tune with their primal power. It was intoxicating, exhilarating, terrifying. They landed in a desolate stretch of grassland, miles from any recognizable landmark. Daenerys, weak from hunger and exhaustion, collapsed onto the dry earth. Drogon, sensing her vulnerability, curled protectively around her, his presence a comforting weight. She was alone, lost in a vast and unforgiving land, but she was not afraid. News of the Dragon Queen and her miraculous escape from Meereen spread like wildfire across the known world. In Westeros, a land consumed by its own petty squabbles and ambitions, her name was whispered with a mixture of awe and apprehension. The Seven Kingdoms, fractured by war and intrigue, seemed ripe for the taking. Daenerys Targaryen, the last scion of a fallen dynasty, represented both hope and danger. To some, she was a savior, a beacon of light in a world shrouded in darkness. To others, she was a threat, a foreign invader intent on conquering their land. Her dragons, symbols of power and destruction, cast a long shadow over the future. As Daenerys gathered her strength, rallying those who would follow her banner, the winds of change began to blow across the narrow sea. The Game of Thrones, played for centuries by ambitious lords and scheming ladies, was about to be upended. A new player had entered the arena, a queen with fire in her heart and dragons at her back.